Hey there, I'm DGW and welcome to my channel. Today I want to talk about the engineer role in Hell Let Loose. If a match is well balanced, the engineer is going to be vital to the success of your team. Its abilities to put down nodes as well as defenses are going to be key to victory. As such, the first in-depth tutorial that I want to do is going to be the engineer role. So without further ado, let's get into it. So before diving deeply into the details of the role, let's just have a quick look at the loadouts. For the Americans, the primary weapon is the M1 carbine. Also carries a knife and a medic pack. Its offensive and defensive capabilities are then concluded by the AP mine and the AT mine. AP mine is for anti-personnel and the AT mine obviously for vehicles. What makes the engineer special is three pieces of his equipment. First up is the wrench, the hammer, as well as the torch. Now the hammer is spread out through several other roles, but especially this wrench and the torch are what set it apart. The wrench is used to put down the blueprints of each of the builds that the engineer can place, whereas the torch can be used to repair vehicles. But before going into details on this wrench any further, let's just take a quick look at the German loadout. The Germans don't really have that much of a difference. The primary weapon is the K98 and instead of a knife it gets a shovel. All the rest of the basic loadout is exactly the same. After you've collected some XPs and you reach level 3, you will gain access to another possible loadout. For the Americans this is called the Sapper and the Germans this is called the Pioneer. The secondary loadout is much more combat focused. For the Americans, the primary weapon changes to the M3 grease gun and the hammer, wrench and both types of mines are replaced by the Satchel Charge. On the German side, the primary weapon is changed to MP40 and again mines and wrench, hammer are replaced by the Satchel Charge. As such, this secondary loadout cannot build or place anything. Its primary focus is to actually destroy enemy fortifications, vehicles, etc. To aid in this quest for destruction, the Satchel Charge is your weapon of choice as it is powerful enough to take down multiple nodes, all forms of defenses, all forms of vehicles, garrisons, etc. Whatever you happen to find in the field, a Satchel Charge will do much more than just scratch the paintwork. However, my primary goal of making this tutorial is to help you all understand the engineer role and its importance in building structures around the battlefield. And in that specific goal, the wrench and the hammer are your best friends. The wrench is used to place down the blueprint of any build you want to place down. Every build has a maximum number that you as the engineer can put down. When holding the wrench and pressing down on your right mouse button, you will get a list of all the things you can build. Behind each item you will see two numbers. The first one is the amount that you have already built of that specific item, and the second number is the maximum amount you can build. For instance, in this specific screenshot, you can see that I haven't built any barbed wires, but I can build 4. Pre-update 9, a single engineer could only build 1 of each of the nodes, but as of update 9, an engineer can build all 4 of the nodes for its entire team. Now these nodes is what make the engineer so vital. The nodes provide resources to the team for the commander to have abilities to put down into action. This involves everything, from spawning vehicles to placing down airheads, dropping supplies, doing bombing runs, strafing runs, etc. The commander's abilities fully depend on the team putting these nodes down and generating the resources required. Also important to note is that the use of artillery guns and anti-tank guns cost munitions, and each spawn of the team costs manpower. So unless you're gonna be in a complete walkover win, your team's efforts and abilities to put these nodes down and defend them when needed are gonna be key to your team's victory. Given that you can put down 4 nodes per type, it means that as an engineer you can build a maximum of 12 nodes in total. Yet for each type of node they have to be 50 meters apart, so you can only cluster them together, 1 manpower, 1 fuel, 1 munitions, and you can't put all 4 munitions next to each other. The amount of resources a node provides depends on which sector of the map they are placed. In the HQ sector, nodes will not generate any resources. However, for each sector after that, the amount of resources they provide go up by increments of 5, meaning +5, +10, +15. In theory, you could build resources in the enemy HQ sector, but that would only work in an offensive map. However, for that effort to make any sense, your team would have to hold the enemy at the first cap. And as this first point is only 1 point, whereas the other ones in offense are 2 points, only rarely happens that you are able to hold them at the first cap. Also important to note is that as of update 9, you will lose the nodes in friendly territory when that territory is lost to the enemy. So placing them strategically does make more sense than just go for the highest production value, as if you lose that friendly territory, you might lose all your nodes and you won't have any production at all. As such, spreading them out across several sectors and not just in one makes much more strategic sense, as it keeps at least some level of supply going. Now, for the actual building of the nodes, it's going to be the same as any deployable in the game. You whip out your wrench, hold your right mouse button down, you can scroll through the list of items you can place down. When you're happy, find a place where it lights up bright green, and by clicking your left mouse button you can actually put down the blueprint. Just a quick note, by the way, you can turn the blueprints around by using the Q and E buttons on your keyboard while holding the right mouse button. And you complete the build by finding your hammer and start playing Bob the Builder. This building mechanic goes for all deployables in the game, so also for garrisons, OPs, anti-tank guns, but also the supplies a support player can put down. Although garrisons, OPs and the supplies and munitions that can be placed down, there is no wrench involved. In case of the squad leader it is the watch, and the support player just has the box itself. That being said, however, the actual building of the blueprint does not necessarily need to be done by the engineer, as any role that has a hammer in its loadout can build the blueprints as long as the supplies are available. One thing I want to note when it comes to blueprints is that they no longer just remain where they're placed. As of update 9, they disappear if they're not used after 3 minutes. Also, it has become a lot easier to dismantle these blueprints if they're not needed in the location they're placed. Placing down the AP and AT mines comes down to tactics. What is the most likely spot they're actually gonna be useful? When it comes to AP mines, the entrances to buildings, the entrances to trenches, or just somewhere in the middle of trenches or close to your nodes to give them some kind of protection would be the most logical choices. As for AT mines, they are best placed on the roads or the routes towards strongholds and the surrounding areas. And last, but certainly not least, the XP system for the engineer. Placing down a blueprint does not grant any XP, only the actual building does. First up is the nodes. Putting down any kind of node costs 50 supplies and grants you 100 build XP. However, as an engineer, you don't only receive XP for the actual building, but each time that specific node generates resources, you will get 10 career and role XP. All XP that you are rewarded by building stuff goes to your support score. So, some simple math means if you build 3 nodes, whatever kind, you will get 300 build XP and generate another 30 XP every minute. Now please do note that the building XP goes to whoever builds it and is split between builders if there's multiple for a certain blueprint. This means each role that has a hammer can actually gain these building XP. As you can see on screen, the cost for building a repair station is 100 supplies and again grants you 100 support XP. Repair stations also give you extra XP for every 30 seconds they are in use by a tank or other vehicle. And lastly, we get to the defenses: barbed wire, hedgehog or Belgian gate, depending what faction you're on, the barricades and bunkers. The barbed wire, the hedgehog and the Belgian gate are pretty straightforward. They cost 10 or 30 supplies and grant you with 20 or 60 building XP. Now the barricade and bunkers is a different story because these are upgradable defenses. They've got 3 tiers. each costing an incremental amount of resources and thus also providing you an incremental amount of building XP. Lastly, placing down an AT or AP mine grants you 10 combat XP. When it comes down to killing enemies and destroying vehicles, the combat XP for that is the same for all other roles, as is the support XP that is granted for destroying garrisons, outposts, nodes and defenses. For those of you that are interested, I will leave links to these lists in the description below. So, that pretty much wraps it up when it comes to the engineer role. I hope you enjoyed it and you find it helpful in becoming a better engineer and supporting your team in the field. If you did, leave a like, leave a comment and maybe go all out and subscribe to the channel. There's plenty more tutorials to come about Hell Let Loose and other games in the future. And with that being said, thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next one.